Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, Opie has been in a relationship with their fiancé since the end of 2019. They initially felt good about their relationship but had issues with their partner's decreased interest in intimacy. Both had complaints, with his working late and their partner not reciprocating. In May, their partner suggested a breakup but later wanted to get back together. During the separation, there was suspicion of infidelity, which was confirmed when he found evidence that their partner had been intimate with someone else. The relationship ended, leaving him feeling heartbroken and deceived. Their partner is now expressing regret and a desire to reconcile, but the author is conflicted. Now let's get into the story. I don't know what I'm looking for by sharing this. I'm just lonely, sad, and disappointed, and maybe I just need some reassurance that I shouldn't consider taking her back. I've been together with my fiancé since the end of 2019. In my mind, things were going great. I proposed last year on a mountain near a waterfall, and she said yes. We talked about what the wedding would be like and having children and all that. However, during our relationship, she became less interested in having sex, like from 1 or 2 times a day to 1 time a week or so. I hated that and tried to make things better. I was always careful with her and made sure she finished. She rarely reciprocated the things I always made sure to do. I hated that, but I accepted it. I am guilty because I'm not good looking and I'm a boring person. I'm a web designer, and I usually end up staying up late working. And she woke up way sooner than I did because she was going to college at that time. She graduated last summer. I mentioned this because that was one of her common complaints, that I stayed up late and we didn't have the same schedule. I'm guilty of that indeed. And the fact that I haven't had many activities outside the internet. She is also kind of lonely. She doesn't have many friends, and in my mind, we were getting along great until this May, when a few days prior to my birthday, she told me she wanted to break up. I was devastated. For a week she didn't say anything. And then she texted me that we had to talk and maybe sort things out because she wanted to get back with me. I forgot to mention that I moved in with her last year after I proposed around October. She told me that she was frustrated that I wasn't paying attention to her and I wasn't helping her enough with the chores. That is true. I was also frustrated by the fact that she was never in the mood. She said it was because she just didn't feel the need to do it. I guess it was a vicious cycle. We talked, got back together and sort of moved back to her place. However, in that particular period of time, she unintentionally hinted that she had been seeing someone during the week we were separated. I pushed her and she confessed that she had been going out with a guy, but said she didn't do anything with him. I was mad, but oh, little did I know that it was worse than I could ever imagine. We got over it. A few days ago, with the seed of doubt planted in my mind, she asked me to look for something. In her purse. I found 2 packs of condoms, one open with one missing. I confronted her and she told me that she didn't remember, that she would never cheat on me, that they were old. However, the unopened pack was from 2020. Acted like I believed her, and maybe a part of me did. But yesterday, while cleaning her desk, I moved her mouse and the screen of the laptop turned on. I wanted to mention that never have I ever invaded the privacy of anyone, but given the last days, I needed answers. I read on her Facebook chats with a girlfriend that indeed, she wanted me back and she didn't do anything with him, even though she lied to me about how she met him. With a sigh of relief, I searched for the word 6 in a conversation with another girl she was close to last year. I wanted to know what I was doing wrong or why she didn't like it. Oh, and oh boy, did my world crash right there. The first result was from last year, where my fiancé described how hot her athletic colleague was and how much she wanted him. It was a graphic description. The others described how she went to a coffee shop with him in a short skirt, and then she went to his house and had sex with him. That was during the months of April and May. I don't know how many times it happened. She said she was trembling and that he had sent her a couple of pictures and she couldn't refuse him. At that point, my hands were shaking and I felt sick. I went back even further and she had talked to her about other guys she was talking to in March, and she said she was considering getting Tinder. I confronted her yesterday and she couldn't believe I found out for half an hour. She kept saying she hadn't cheated on me until she started crying and got on her knees. She said that it was a mistake and that she loved me and wanted to marry me and have my children and all that. I got what I could carry of my things, packed them into my car, and left. So I don't know why I wrote this. I feel heartbroken and destroyed. I really thought I would marry that girl. She is conservative and shy, but I wasn't alpha enough to get to see her true self. I have to hit the gym. I guess I still can't believe it happened, but yeah, she keeps texting me that she doesn't want to leave me and she would do anything to get me back. And I'm grossed out by the fact that her 2 girlfriends encouraged this behavior. Maybe because she was only telling them the bad things. A month after she cheated was one of their birthdays. So we got together with them and their boyfriends. So, I was probably in a room full of people knowing I got cheated on, and I had never a clue at that time. Today's second story. In this story, Opie had to quarantine before New Year's Eve due to a COVID test. Their girlfriend, whom they'd been with for 2 years, didn't offer support and acted distant. On New Year's Eve, the girlfriend was discovered to be with another man, having met him on Tinder just before the holiday. He ended the relationship. Later, the girlfriend claimed to be pregnant but couldn't afford an abortion. She moved back in with her parents, and a DNA test revealed the narrator wasn't the father. Now let's get into the story. 3 days before New Year's Eve. In 2021, I was tested for COVID-19 and told that I must quarantine until the test results come back. It was just my luck that the test results wouldn't be ready until next year. I called my girlfriend of 2 years and broke the news. I wouldn't be able to party with her or socialize with anyone until next year. She was with me the day before I got tested, but she didn't offer to visit or stay with me. Although I was bummed I was being quarantined, so I chose not to be offended. I texted her on the day before New Year's Eve, and she only replied 4 times in the entire day. Her responses were short and cold. I couldn't believe she didn't have time to video call me at all on the day before New Year's Eve. She didn't respond to me at all. At this point, I was really disappointed and pretty much assumed we were done. Why else would she ignore me? I would never do this to her, especially if she was sick and alone over New Year's. On New Year's Eve, she texted me once to ask how I was doing. After I replied, I didn't hear anything. Midnight arrived and I banged pots and pans out my bedroom window while I waited for her to message or call me. She never did. Around 1 a.m., I started calling her over and over again. Her phone would just ring. Finally, someone answered. It was a man's voice. He told me to stop calling her because she was asleep in his bed. I told him I was her boyfriend of 2 years and he couldn't be serious. He said he was dead serious. She was staying at his house and sleeping with him for the past 3 days. He said she told him she had been single for months now and my phone number was programmed as lame ex-boyfriend. I was in disbelief. I demanded to talk to her, but he hung up on me. I was distraught. In the morning, she texted me to say Happy New Year, I love you, and I responded with, that means nothing if you say it from another man's bed. She called me immediately and started trying to figure out why. I knew as soon as I told her I spoke with him on the phone. She confessed everything. She met him on Tinder a couple of weeks ago and decided to meet up with him 3 days before New Year's Eve. She stayed at his house from then until this point. Even though it wasn't much of a surprise, I dumped her. She was understanding and calm, but it was just the start of her bad karma. The man she was sleeping with kicked her out on January 4th because his wife and kids were coming back. She went back to her parents' house, but that was where she normally lived anyway. It was at this time that she really started to feel regret for what she did. She threw away our relationship so easily, but now she was alone. She started calling me every day, but I wouldn't always answer. She basically kept saying how sorry she was and that she was stupid for seeking another man. I agreed with all of her self-criticism without offering any support or willingness to meet in person again. She gave up calling me for a little while, so it was odd when she called me about 2 weeks later. She was sobbing when she told me she was pregnant. I told her if she was going to keep the baby, she'd have to get a DNA test to prove it was mine. She cried harder, explaining she didn't want to keep the baby, but she didn't have the money or anyone to help her pay for an abortion. She couldn't tell her parents because they wouldn't want her to have an abortion. I told her that sucked and hung up. I didn't know at the time, but she asked one relative at a time to help her get an abortion. How embarrassing. She was met with denial after denial until someone finally told her parents what was going on. They told her she could choose between being pregnant and homeless or being pregnant and living with them. She chose to stay with them. I called her parents to find out all this and asked them to have the baby's DNA tested so I would know if I was the father. It didn't take long to find out I wasn't. If my ex wasn't ashamed before this, she certainly was now. Her parents grilled her until she finally told them who she thought the father was. Sad thing was that she couldn't even be sure. Her parents took her phone and called his number. His wife answered. I don't know for sure what happened next, but I heard that she filed for divorce and custody of their kids. Another family broken apart due to infidelity, selfishness, and inconsideration. The man was willing to do a DNA test to find out if he was the father. But after it was concluded that he was, he refused to be involved with the child at all. I think he was so willing to prove he wasn't the father that he didn't give any consideration to what he would do if he was. My ex tried to get child support from him, but he fled the country. He wasn't taking any chances. So my ex was left alone to raise a child. At the young age of 22, her parents offer her a free babysitting service, but only when she goes to work at her crappy job. They call every single time to make sure she's there, since she destroyed all trust they had in her. Needless to say, my ex learned that cheating is never a good idea. It brings many unintended consequences, embarrassment and shame. I learned how important it is to take your time while dating someone. Just because you've been with them for 1 or 2 years doesn't mean you know them as well as they want you to believe. I'm starting this new year as a bachelor, swimming in positive vibes. Today's third story. In this story, after an 11-year relationship, a period of depression, and an attempt to propose, a troubling revelation of infidelity has shaken things. Despite initial lies, the girlfriend confessed to an affair with a coworker. Efforts to rebuild trust were undermined when she used therapy funds for a hotel rendezvous with him. Accusations and harsh words were exchanged, and she declined 50-50 custody arrangements. She's involved with a man who has a serious drug problem and can't see his own children. Now let's get into the story. My girlfriend and I have been together for 11 years and have one beautiful child who is 7 years old. She has another child who is 15 from a previous relationship. We met when I was 18 and I took on the responsibility of helping to bring up my stepdaughter as my own. Our relationship, like most, has gone through its ups and downs. I was young and had never been in a long-term relationship. I made mistakes. She made many more. However, the last 5 years I have been an honest, faithful, and loving boyfriend. 2 years ago, I decided to be as selfless and loving as I could be to everyone around me. At the beginning of the year, I had some things happen in my life that left me in a really dark place. I was severely depressed. In the beginning, she was there for me and she was perfect. She made me a calendar to remind me every day of how she felt for me. And she bought me a couple of heartfelt things that helped me through the hardest times. I haven't been myself for 10 months and I have admittedly withdrawn. But it was in the darkest moments that I decided I wanted to spend the rest of my life with this girl. And I started to plan my proposal. My girlfriend was furloughed for most of the lockdown but eventually found a new job where she seemed so much happier. At the start of October, I found that my girlfriend was pulling away. She no longer said she loved me, she no longer hugged me or kissed me, and I started to have suspicions. I worked on myself and our relationship. She would hide her phone when I was around or would quickly exit. WhatsApp app. However, at the end of October, she started going to the gym one night. Her class wasn't for hours after she'd finished work. Her explanation was that she would wait outside until the class started. It didn't make sense to me. I called her after work and she sounded like she was in the car, but her response was that she was working late at work and trying to get things finished up before heading to the gym. I turned on Find My iPhone to discover she wasn't where she said she was. She was outside another man's house. I confronted her about this, and she lied, saying she was at work, and then switched to saying she was picking up a quick tea before class. Until I eventually revealed that I knew exactly where she was because of the tracker she blew up, saying that I had invaded her privacy and that I was some freak for tracking her every move. And then eventually she came out with the truth that yes indeed, she was there to meet another man. She had been having an affair with a man at her new job. I asked her to come home to talk about it, but she refused and instead turned her phone off. She had invited him into her car after our conversation and they drove together to a local park and spent hours together. I went around to his house only to find that they were not there. His father opened the door and when I explained the situation his only response was sounds about right, he does this. She drove to her mum's afterward, still texting him with kisses and apologizing that I went around to his house. With emojis included. Eventually, we spoke and she showed me what little text she had not had a chance to delete yet. He was laughing at the fact that I had almost found out about their affair a couple of days prior when she thought I was going through her phone. I had not had a chance to do that yet. I contacted him and told him how he was hurting a 7-year-old girl and he laughed at that and could only say I am doing nothing wrong. I am a one-man band. We eventually agreed that she would block him on everything and discussed her leaving her new job to try and work on us. She opened up about other issues we were having and one of those was money. She would never be open with me about what kind of position she was in money-wise. She had finally been honest and told me that she was $400 overdrawn and another $300 was due to come out. I was a sucker and I fell for the fact that she was finally being honest with me and transferred her the $700 a short while later. She blocked me on all outlets and unblocked him. I had asked her to get therapy. She said she couldn't afford it. She used the $700 to book a hotel room that cost the same amount as therapy with the man she had an affair with. She said that the last 11 years had been so unhappy for her and that I didn't love her enough or show her enough affection. This isn't true. I am an affectionate person by nature and showed her love constantly. I have had 10 really dark months, but I was just starting to feel better about myself. She called me a narcissist, a dick, a prick. There were conversations, stations full of screw yous. She refused 50-50 custody. However, I had my daughter 5 out of 7 nights last week because she wanted to go see this man instead. I've left every conversation feeling like things were my fault, that I was worthless, and that I should have done more this past year. She refused to sit down with the children to explain what was happening. It needed to be done with her so that she could console her children and not feel like she had abandoned them. However, because I've had my child almost every night, that's impossible. It's not fair on her. She asked questions like, "What is cheating?" I've wondered, why should I have to feel like I've abandoned her? Why should we do it on her terms? I didn't make these choices. She did. To top it all off, I found out yesterday that the man she has chosen has a problem with drugs to the point that he's not allowed to see his current children and recently dumped his ex because he got her pregnant and she wouldn't abort their baby. Sorry if this is a lot or all over the place. My head is a mess at the moment. There's a lot more, but I think this is long enough. Does anyone have any advice?